after Dr. Evans' introduction, I'm not sure if I have anything else to say. But I know that would be an easy way out. So I'll go ahead and make sure I don't repeat many of those things that she has said. I titled my thinking as the autobiographies of W.E.B. Du Bois, a cultural poeticist perspective. That is, I'm going to be looking at these biographies in general as a cultural poeticist, somebody who's looking at it, should it be literature, should it be history, and all of that. Autobiographies, by their very nature, present personal histories, or what may also be called a sociological account of an author. In the case of William Du Bois, his biographies serve to represent his life's journey and his ideas, but also included in the representation are events, episodes, and experiences that reveal the larger social structure of his American society in an historical context. Should we read Du Bois' autobiographies as literature or history, or both? A cultural poeticist will read them as both. For the purpose of this seminar, my interest in Du Bois' autobiographies is from the perspective of cultural poeticists who also can be referred to as the new historicist or the cultural materialist. And my comments will address just these questions so that I don't repeat what Dr. Evans has said or what my other colleagues will say. So I limit myself to just the questions. The first question, what kinds of cultural pathways, that is behavior or modes of operation or practice, are revealed in his autobiographies? To what larger social structures do the autobiographies connect in the larger American society? And the last question is, what might we find compelling in the autobiographies? In these autobiographies, a number of cultural pathways are apparent to me. One is poverty of black people. Although the poverty connects to the larger social structures of America, in which poverty was rampant across the races during Du Bois' time. Of course, as an advocate of black people, we expect him to focus attention on the poverty of his people. So he described his own family's poverty in the following words. The family was small farmers on Egmont Plain between Great Barrington and Sheffield, Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think you're in.
The bits of land was so small to support the great families born on them, and we were always poor. I never remember being cold or hungry, but I do remember that shoes and coal and sometimes flour cost mother moments of anxious thoughts in winter, and a new suit was an event. So, discussing the poverty of his own family creates connections for people when they read such autobiographies. It gives them moments of flashback into history at a time when the great American society didn't have enough for everybody. Another cultural pathway was passing. Okay? We all have done so many readings on passing. We know that passing as white was to gain privilege and opportunity for a lot of people. Many black people who passed did exactly that. So Du Bois also gave us an opening into members of his family who could pass and those who did pass. Du Bois identified some of his family members passing for white. He talked about one of his great uncles, Dr. James Du Bois, a gay, rich bachelor who made his money in the Bahamas, where he and the Gilberts had plantations. There, he took a beautiful little mulatto slave as his mistress. And 2 sons were born, Alexander in 1803 and John later. They were fine, straight, clear-eyed boys, white enough to pass. Well, they didn't really say they passed these particular people, but he told us later those who actually passed. Then, talking about his grandfather, Du Bois remarks, beneath his sternness was a very human man. He loved women in his masterful way, marrying 3 beautiful wives in succession and clinging to each with a certain desperate, even if sympathetic affection. As a father, he was naturally a failure. Had domineering, unyielding personality. His 4 children reacted characteristically. One was until past middle life a thin spinster, the mental image of a father. One died, one passed over into the white world, and her children's children are now white, with no knowledge of their Negro blood. So, Bois is telling us that there are some white people who are also supposed to be Negroes. And that's connecting to those kind of cultural pathways where that conversation is always ongoing about people's identity, ethnicity. In fact, it's gotten so complicated. People have all kinds of identities in the single body. The women in Du Bois's family were also strong matriarchs. His grandmother was tough, so also was his mother. It looks like everybody's mother is always tough. So was my grandma, very tough. The grandmother, a stern, tall Dutch African woman, big-nosed, but beautiful eyed and golden skinned, had a shrewish tongue and often berated the husband. His mother ignored her own husband too, that is Du Bois's father, and forged a life for herself and made the young Du Bois the center of her universe. Okay? So that also connects to the idea of the black, a strong black woman. Okay? So that kind of motif is still playing on. And that's why autobiographies such as Du Bois's kind of document lives that have been lived and the ones that are still living. Racial tension based on mutual distrust of the races is yet another cultural pathway that Du Bois also reveals in his autobiographies. In The Soul of White Folk, Du Bois claims to have observed many souls that toss and whirl and pass, but none intrigued him more than the soul of white folk. He claims to see in and through them. I find that fascinating. He views them from unusual points of vantage. He sees these souls undressed and from the back and side and the working of their entrails. According to Du Bois, that's now Du Bois speaking, I know their thoughts as the white people, and they know that I know. This knowledge makes them now embarrassed, and embarrassed now furious. They deny my right to live, and yet, as they preach and strut and shout and threaten, crouching as they clutch at rags of facts and fancies to hide their nakedness, they go twisting, flying by my tired eyes, and I see them ever stripped, ugly, but human. Du Bois also describes the anger often directed at black people sitting in places they were not permitted to sit, and how black victims would be tortured and killed because somebody accused of crime happened to be of the same color. And now to the aspect of what I find compelling. I think the characterization of his identity is, in my opinion, compelling. How Du Bois saw himself. He was pleased that he had a flood of Negro blood. He was pleased, he was happy to be a black person. Then a strain of French, a bit of Dutch. But he was thankful that he did not possess a drop of Anglo-Saxon blood. But then as I was reading that, my question then was, how could he be sure? How could he was be sure that he did not possess a drop of Anglo-Saxon blood? Well, then I said, it would be interesting to find what the new scientific filter of the DNA actually says about Du Bois's heritage. That would be interesting. Perhaps this has been done, but I must plead ignorance of this fact. I don't know if it's been done or not, but I will be happy to see that. For Du Bois, and rightly so, race is a social construct. He refers to the Middle Ages to make his point clear to us. According to Du Bois, race was not an issue in the Middle Ages. The issue was class or economic station of the individual. He argues that America has effectively used the issue of class, which originally dominated in Europe, and turned it on its head and made it into an issue of race for its own particular purpose. Just as they have been dominated in Europe because of class, so they thought, yeah, being different racially might be a good idea to get ahead. That's what Du Bois was kind of implying. Honesty of rendition is another aspect of his autobiography that I find compelling. Of course, complete honesty in telling stories such as personal histories, autobiographies, may be an impossible conceit. But in my mind, I think Du Bois did reveal some unflattering facts about himself, which I think validate my assessment of his honesty. Basically, he called himself a thug also in his description of how he was growing up in his town. He was one of those boys throwing stones, breaking things, and so on and so forth. I've been told I have final thought to make. And not before I need to say this. Another compelling aspect of his autobiography is his style of writing, which I find idiosyncratic, unconventional, and particularized. By way of illustration, what Du Bois calls the Litany of Atlanta in that order is supposed to be an account of his struggles against prejudice and injustice in the South. This account is not one that narrates stories. It's a poetic kind of incantation of his life experiences in the South. This style will confound a young reader who has been taught all the elementary standards of composition. But of course, Du Bois was only exercising his poetic license. And he's a scholar, so we respect him. In conclusion, I wonder how much Du Bois's autobiography actually revealed truths about himself and his American society. To the extent that his narratives relate to larger social structures of American society, one could make the claim that the autobiographies reveal a great amount of truth about his life and his society. In that sense, the autobiographies may be considered historical texts of scholarly significance, especially for the study of race, ethnicity in America. Thank you very much.